Elder Orson F. Whitney of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles published an article in the December 1919 Improvement Era. In a section called Spirit Memories, he wrote, quote, "Writing one day upon the subject of spirit memories, I was led to indulge in these reflections. Why are we drawn towards certain persons and they to us as if we had always known each other? Is it a fact that we always have? Is there something, after all, in that much abused term affinity? And is this the basis of its claim? At all events, it is just as logical to look back upon fond associations as it is to look forward to them. We believe that ties formed in this life will be continued in the life to come. Then why not believe that we had similar ties before we came into this world, and that some of them, at least, have been resumed in this state of existence? After meeting someone whom I had never met before on earth, I have wondered why that person's face seemed so familiar. More than once, upon hearing a noble sentiment expressed, though unable to recall that I had ever heard it until then, I have found myself in sympathy with it, was thrilled by it, and felt as if I had always known it. The same is true of some strains of music. They are like echoes of eternity. I do not assert pre-acquaintance in all such cases, but as one thought suggests another, these queries arise in the mind. When it comes to the gospel, I feel more positive. Why did the Savior say, "My sheep know my voice"? Did a sheep ever know the voice of a shepherd if it had never heard that voice before? They who love the truth and to whom it most strongly appeals, were they not acquainted with it in a previous life? I think so. I believe we knew the gospel before we came here, and that is what gives it a familiar sound. Very much in the same vein, I once wrote to President Joseph F. Smith, he being at the time in Utah and I on a mission in Europe. His reply is here presented. I heartily endorse your sentiments concerning congeniality of spirits. Our knowledge of persons and things before we came here, combined with the divinity awakened within our souls through obedience to the gospel, powerfully affects, in my opinion, all our likes and dislikes and guides our preferences in the course of this life, provided we give careful heed to the admonitions of the Spirit. All those salient truths which come so forcibly to the head and the heart seem but the awakening of the memories of the Spirit. Can we know anything here that we did not know before we came? Are not the means of knowledge in the first estate equal to those of this? I think that the Spirit, before and after this probation, possesses greater facilities, aye, manifold greater, for the acquisition of knowledge than while manacled and shut up in the prison house of mortality. I believe our Savior possessed a foreknowledge of all of the vicissitudes through which he would have to pass in the mortal tabernacle. If Christ knew beforehand, so did we. But in coming here we forgot all, that our agency might be free indeed, to choose good or evil, that we might merit the reward of our own choice and conduct. But by the power of the Spirit and the redemption of Christ through obedience, we often catch a spark from the awakened memories of the immortal soul, which lights up our whole being as with the glory of our former home." Close quote. Truman Madsen gave a talk in which he told of an experience he had with President Hugh B. Brown of the First Presidency. Truman Madsen explained that he thought that the scriptures might not contain the full record of Jesus' interaction with his apostles, as he called them seemingly upon first seeing them. Hugh B. Brown smiled and then told the following experience from his life. He said, quote, "I was once walking down a street in Salt Lake and saw in the distance on the sidewalk another man. He looked familiar to me, though I did not know him. And that impression of familiarity grew as we approached. When we were side by side, it was almost like an electric shock. Each of us took a few steps, stopped, turned around, and stared at the other, and then went on our way. Years later, I learned that was Orson F. Whitney, who became a member of the Council of the 12, as I became a member of the Council of the 12." Close quote. George Q. Cannon related a similar experience. He said, quote, "I was a boy when my people gathered with the saints of God. I was very curious to know the prophet Joseph, having heard a great deal about him. I happened to be in a large crowd of people where the prophet was, and I selected him out of that large body of people. There were no means of recognition that I know of which would suggest him to me as the prophet, but I recognized him as though I had always known him. I am satisfied that I had known him and been familiar with him. There are instances which all of us doubtless have known, which have proved to us that there has been a spiritual acquaintance existing between us. We frequently say, "How familiar that person's face is to me." In this way, kindred spirits are brought together. We are drawn together by this knowledge and this acquaintanceship, which, I have no doubt, was formed anterior to our birth in this state of existence.